Hi, ladies. Let's talk about the healing journey because it's ongoing in the fact that I don't think you ever go, I don't think about my health anymore. And I feel like my health and healing journey has taken turns where when I originally started, I definitely was I thought everything was supplements, nutrition, the right labs, and you can fix any issue. And as I continued down that road, I realized that there's another big aspect to healing, and that is nervous system. And I think nervous system is getting its moment right now. I don't know. How long have we been doing nervous system in our program? We've been doing nervous system for a year and a half, almost 2 years. So I would say we were just ahead of the curve of it being trendy. Or maybe it's just trendy in my world because I live in this world. But the reason why I have found it to be so important in that healing journey is that we tend to have these beliefs that we just always need to be working on our health or something. You know, if you've been sick for a really long time, we tend to just kind of stay in that mindset, you know? And it's kind of weird. So I wanted to kind of give you a recap of what started my healing journey in the first place. And then I want to share the hiccup I had when we had mold in our house. So that's fun. And you guys have heard the mold episode. That's a while ago. Okay. So I first started my health journey when I was diagnosed with fibroadenomas, which are benign breast tumors. So breast cancer gallops in my family on both sides. So that's what made me take my health seriously at that point. So I grew up, my mom is very holistic. My mom is all into like holistic medicine. Leah thought that Skittles were appropriate breakfast food. So if that can give you insight into how someone can just vastly shift in their ideas of what is an appropriate breakfast food, I hope that gives it to you. And I grew up with a mom who's very, very, very much into holistic health. So it just makes me laugh. So anyways, when I graduated college, I was doing a self-breast exam and I discovered a golf ball sized lump. And I went to the doctor, was diagnosed with fibroadenomas, and that put me on the path of healing. No, it didn't. It put me on the path of wandering around, trying random stuff. Because up till this point, I had had really painful periods, like throwing up on your period, taking the highest dose of Midol, popping that stuff like it's candy, and throwing up on my period. When I did ovulate, because my cycles were super irregular all over the place, when I would ovulate, my progesterone was so low. My luteal phase, so ovulation to period, was 8 days. 8. It should be 12 to 14. And so obviously not enough progesterone to be able to sustain a pregnancy. And I went to naturopaths, functional doctors. There, a lot of times I think certain doctors will just hone in on one thing. Like their specialty is heavy metals. Their specialty is parasites. Their specialty is mold. Their specialty is Lyme. And, you come to this doctor and you really are expecting more of like a holistic view of your health. It's like, you have parasites. That's the issue. You know what? Everyone who has a pulse who has a parasite, but not everybody needs to do a parasite cleanse, And I just went around in circles and circles and circles and circles, trying all sorts of stuff. Obviously they put me on progesterone because that should definitely solve the issue. To not solve the issue, progesterone kind of made me psycho too. Every time I would have to cycle on progesterone, it just made me feel like I was losing my mind. I would just get so mad at everyone around me and still didn't fix the issue of my irregular ovulations. Did all of the cleanses, did all the detoxes, did all the random labs. Nothing really worked. I was just told, you have estrogen dominance. You have one of the MTHFR gene mutations. That's your issue. But nothing that they had me do was working. So it's when you just fire them all and you hit the books. If I could go back to past Leah and tell her to change something when she started her health journey, I would tell her to go find somebody who had done it, instead of going, you're a functional doctor and you went to school and you did that. Great. No, I want to go find somebody who had what I had or very similar story and then went on to study this and works with women like me. It's just a little bit more useful. So I would have told myself that. Anyways, that is when I went back to study and figure this out myself and look at my body as a whole. And it wasn't a fast journey, but within 6 months, I would say, of implementing this, I was able to regulate my cycles and raise my progesterone, and I got a positive pregnancy test. So all within that time frame of implementing that, and got painless periods. So I did get painless periods before I got pregnant. And it was not one thing. I wish it was. It was not one thing. Obviously, you have your basics, that you hear me talk about all the time: blood sugar balance, eating for the rise and fall of your hormones, removing endocrine disruptors, getting on a little bit more specifically targeted supplementation than I needed versus just more general. And my fibroadenomas had shrunk. They weren't completely gone at this point. And I got pregnant and had successful pregnancy, very tired postpartum. I was very tired, which my kid didn't sleep very well, but very, very, very tired. And that is when I discovered minerals. So up until this point, you guys know I talk about minerals all the time and how important they are. But before this, I hadn't run HTMA testing, and I had done, all the other testing, but hadn't heard of HTMA testing, hadn't done HTMA testing. And so after I had my first son, I discovered minerals. And I truly think that was such a game changer, because now I had foundations, now I had the knowledge with nutrition and the lifestyle and all of that other stuff. And then I added in this missing puzzle piece, which was minerals. And that is when my fibroadenomas completely disappeared. I'm trying to think if I had anything else in that time frame. This was like 4.5 years ago, so I have to think back a while, you guys. I just remember I was so tired, which is what made me look for something new, because I needed more help postpartum than just nutrition, because I was so depleted from pregnancy and breastfeeding, which is how I found minerals. And I think when I started minerals, I also started herbs to support overall vitality of the body as well. That's when I came across mushrooms and used more herbs. So they kind of integrated at the same time. And such a game changer. Second pregnancy was worlds of difference in terms of, energy and that postpartum experience. And then we had a leak in our basement, which is where I worked majority of my time working, and it had mold. Bummer. And we found it really quick. I was having symptoms. I remember being tired and my joints ached. I felt like an old person. I would wake up, I'm okay, I was 30. Yeah, I was 30. I'm why do my joints hurt? I feel like I can't walk, my ankles hurt, everything hurt. It was just, and that's when we found the mold. We did get our house remediated, and pretty soon after that, I decided to run labs because I suspected mold, and obviously I had mold. But something that I just felt was so defeating, because I'm constantly supporting and taking care of my health, was that my blood work came back so wildly not great. Okay, it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't great. So when did I run these tests? I think I ran these tests 2.5, 3 months after being exposed to mold, because I was finishing breastfeeding at the end of that. So that's why I waited to run them, because I'm I don't want to get too intense into anything until I'm done breastfeeding. And I'm going off of memory here. I could pull them up, but I remember I got the labs back and my adrenals needed help. My TSH, my thyroid, was at 2.8. I was my TSH has never been. So what's going on here? And my antibodies were negative, but the T4 and T3 were not optimal. My glucose was fine. My fasting insulin was higher. I think it was a 7. And you guys know I like to see that below 5. 7.8? I'm trying to remember. I know it was 7. I think it was 7. I just felt so defeated. Because I obviously was more tired. I was dealing with brain fog and my joints ached. I knew that part was mold, but emotionally it was hard for me to go, that's also probably why your blood works off. As a practitioner, I know that. I can tell you that. But emotionally, it was hard for me to make that connection. Emotionally, I was just you suck. You don't know what you're doing. What on earth is wrong with you? And I had to take a really big step back with myself. And this is why I outsourced my labs. So I sent my labs to somebody else. I sent them to another FDN I'm good friends with. I was what is going on? Tell me what is going on. And she was just oh, you got mold. Like, I know, but bummer. And she helped me, take more of an objective look at that, because you get so deep into your own health and it's hard to be objective. I'm just over here like, I'm a failure. I know nothing. My labs weren't optimal. This is horrible. And thankfully, I do know to ask for help so I don't spiral out of control. But I was spiraling for sure. Didn't quite hit the out of control, but I was definitely spiraling. And I remember it just was impacting like all these areas of my life, I felt like, because I just felt all of a sudden like I just wasn't good enough. And I remember I came back from a riding lesson and I had gotten super nauseous while I was riding, and I just felt like I can't even ride anymore. I don't even know what I'm doing here. See how you just start spiraling into all these areas? And I came home and my husband had written me a note. I love him. He does an awesome job being a husband. And he wrote, "You have got this. I know it feels really hard right now, but you know what to do. Just take a step back and do what you know to do." And I just bawled my eyes out. I had to take a shower because it smelled like a horse. And I bawled my eyes out in the shower, and I felt like that gave me the next step that I needed to do. And that was just sit back, look over, what this FDN other practitioner had sent over to me, and really dial in what I knew I needed to do. And part of that was taking a step back and really creating a boundary routine with my nervous system, because it's really easy to start getting lost in the little nooks and crannies of just being busy, right? And so I really dialed everything in for, I think it was 4 months, doing all the things I knew I was supposed to do, everything I should do. And I reran my labs and they were back to good. So thank heavens. But it was around that time that I also started becoming an NLP practitioner, because of what a big impact I noticed it had with my health, because I needed to start to let go of these beliefs, because as soon as something happened with my health, where did I go? I went right back to, you're not good enough. You suck. You don't know what you're doing. Even though that's not true. Objectively, that's not true. But like emotionally, like objectively, this is connected to being exposed to mold, right? But emotionally, I had a really hard time with that. And so because that made such a big difference in my health, like being able to really let go of those beliefs and rewire them, more importantly, rewire the subconscious part of your brain there, I knew I needed to bring that to my clients. And so that's when I went to become an NLP practitioner, and we now bring that to our clients. So I kind of want to just share a little bit about like the simplification of things that really helped with rewiring my brain and what my focus is on postpartum again. So I really feel like the simplification of things was not trying to overcomplicate healing. You don't need a million supplements. You don't need a million protocols. Sometimes simpler is better. And rewiring your brain doesn't mean you have to sit here and be like, I am healed. I am amazing. Your brain is not even going to believe that. So it was it was the big moments of actually working with someone to help with that. But it was also the little moments throughout the day of the focusing on the good reminders, like, look, digestion was great with that meal, or, oh, look, we're having more energy today, or look, whatever it is, right? And when you would have a bad day, not letting it mean anything. It's just feedback. Doesn't mean anything, just feedback. It was those little things every day that made the big things. And I have to remind myself of this all the time, especially because of how kids feed off of your nervous system, that if I feel like I'm getting overstimulated, nothing is an emergency. You can put down whatever I'm working on. We can all go outside. We can all go downstairs in the basement. We can all dance. We can all hum. It's not an emergency. And I really had to tell myself, like, it's not an emergency. These things are not an emergency, right? And that has really just made such an impact, because how often do you go throughout your day feeling like everything's an emergency? Everything needs to be done right now, right? And so I feel like the biggest things that I'm currently working on when it comes to nervous system is always setting myself up for success with my kids. Because I'm going to be completely honest, between running a business and having kids and making food, it's easy to get overstimulated. There's a lot of people asking for things. There's a lot of people asking questions, right? And so I just have to set time for this is for this person and this is for this person. And sometimes those lines blend through, like sometimes on a call, my kid has to be sitting with me, and that happens. But really setting the space that nothing is an emergency. Nothing's an emergency. Okay. Obviously, there are real life emergencies. You guys know that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. So if things need to get set down and moved to a later date, it's okay. And then also recognizing that we always need support. And I think it's really important to make sure as a practitioner that you're coming back to retesting, right? You're coming back to retesting and you're coming back to having somebody else always help you, because that's what you're really good at for doing for other people, but it's easy to get lost in the weeds for yourself. And so I just recommend staying on top of having somebody else keep you objective and have somebody else ask you hard questions. Okay. Somebody asked me a hard question today, and I think it would be useful for you. So she said, how do you find yourself becoming overcommitted? Like, how did you get to the space of feeling like you're overcommitted in different areas, like you have too many things to do? I'm just like, I don't know. How did I get here? Did I say yes to too many things? Did I not create a priority that I should have? Did I not hold a boundary? Did I not say no? I don't know. So if you find yourself super busy, running around like a crazy person, I just encourage you to ask yourself, how did that happen? And I also encourage you to outsource your health. Not outsource your power, but outsource somebody else being able to take on the bird's eye view for you, because it's life-changing. It really is. And it makes such a big difference to have somebody walk alongside you and for you to be able to let it go. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to figure everything out. You just got to take the next best step. So if that's you, Hormone Reset Program would be a fabulous fit for you. You can go to bit.ly/HRP free call and book your free call with one of my past clients and share your story with us to see if it is a good fit and we can help you.